I met him when I wasn't looking for comfort. I had already learned how to sit with my own silence. How to move through days without needing someone to fill the empty spaces. I wasn't lonely, just independent in a way that felt earned. He didn't rush into my life. He observed it. Our conversations were calm, thoughtful, unforced. He never tried to impress me. He asked questions and actually waited for the answers. And that patience made me lower my guard without realizing it. One evening, he said something quietly, almost casually. "I'm better at being needed than being wanted." I laughed, unsure what he meant. I didn't know then that some truths don't sound heavy until they start to matter. Being around him felt steady. Not exciting. Not overwhelming. Just grounding. He showed up when he said he would. Remembered small details. Checked in without making it feel like obligation. I told myself this was healthy. This was what calm connection looked like. But slowly, I noticed a pattern. He was present when I leaned on him, when I needed advice, reassurance, support. But when things shifted toward closeness, toward intimacy without purpose, he became quieter. More reserved. "You're strong," he said once. I admire that. I took it as admiration. I didn't realize it was also a way of keeping distance. Because being strong meant I didn't ask. And not asking made everything easier for him. The moment I started wanting more surprised me. Not because it was intense, but because it was quiet and persistent. I wanted to be chosen, not relied on. Wanted to be someone he reached for even when I didn't need anything. I tested it once. I shared something vulnerable without framing it as a problem to solve. He listened. He cared. But he didn't move closer. That's when I understood the difference. He was comfortable with dependence. Not with desire. And as that realization settled in, I felt a familiar ache, the kind that comes when you sense you're about to ask for something that might change everything. After that, I became more aware of how I showed up around him. I noticed how often I framed my feelings as observations instead of needs. How I softened my words so they wouldn't sound like expectations. I didn't want to push him into a space he clearly avoided. He didn't ask me to do that. Which somehow made it worse. Because it meant I was changing on my own, quietly, to fit into something that only worked when I stayed convenient. One evening, he said something that stayed with me. "You don't really need anyone, do you?" It sounded like admiration. But it felt like relief. I smiled and shrugged, even though something in my chest tightened. I wanted to tell him that independence wasn't the same as emotional distance. That being capable didn't mean I didn't want to be held in someone's certainty. But I stayed quiet. Because the moment I said that out loud, I would have to face what he might not be able to give. The imbalance became clearer the more I paid attention. He leaned on me when life felt heavy. He opened up when he was overwhelmed. I was his place to land, steady, understanding, available. But when I needed reassurance, when I wanted to feel wanted instead of useful, he hesitated. Not rejecting me, just redirecting. Changing the subject. Offering logic where I needed closeness. I didn't confront him. I just felt the weight of it settle. I realized then how easy it is to confuse being valued with being depended on. And how dangerous it can be to stay in a connection where your strength becomes the reason no one ever has to choose you fully. I started pulling back without meaning to. Not to punish him. Not to create distance. It was instinctive, a quiet response to the realization that I was giving more than I was receiving, even if neither of us had ever named it that way. He noticed. "You've been quieter," he said one afternoon. I almost laughed. Because quiet was the one thing he'd always been comfortable with. "I'm just tired," I replied. And just like that, the moment passed. No questions. No curiosity. No attempt to step closer. It confirmed what I'd been trying not to see. He didn't notice the absence of my openness because he had never relied on it. The truth surfaced slowly, in fragments. In the way he reached out only when he needed grounding. In the way he listened best when there was a problem to solve. In the way he seemed unsure of me when I was simply wanting. One night, I asked him something I hadn't planned to ask. "Do you ever think about us?" He hesitated. "Not long, just enough." "I think about what works," he said. The answer wasn't wrong. But it wasn't what I needed. Because love isn't only about what works. It's about what you choose, even when it's uncomfortable. That was when the ache became clear. I wasn't longing for more attention or reassurance. I was longing to be wanted without a reason. Without usefulness. Without strength being the condition. I didn't want to be his safe place. I wanted to be his choice. And as that truth settled in, I understood something quietly devastating. He didn't avoid closeness because he didn't care. He avoided it because closeness didn't need him. And I was standing in a connection where my independence made me invisible. I didn't confront him right away. I needed time to understand what I was feeling without turning it into an accusation. Because the truth was subtle, and subtle truths are the hardest to explain without sounding unreasonable. He hadn't hurt me. He hadn't ignored me. He just hadn't chosen me. And that difference mattered more than anything else. The conversation happened on an ordinary night. No tension. No build-up. Just the quiet honesty that comes when you're too tired to pretend. "I think I matter to you," I said. "But I don't think you want me." He looked genuinely surprised. "That's not true," he said quickly. "I care about you a lot." "I know," I replied. "But caring isn't the same as wanting to build something." He went quiet. Not defensive, thoughtful. And in that silence, I already knew the answer. "I don't know how to want without needing," he finally admitted. And suddenly, everything made sense. I went home with a strange sense of calm. Because clarity, even when it hurts, is lighter than confusion. I replayed his words over and over, not to punish myself, but to understand them. He wasn't emotionally unavailable. He was emotionally conditional. He could connect when there was a role to play. A purpose to serve. A problem to fix. But desire without necessity made him uncomfortable. And I couldn't stay in a place where love only existed when I was useful. I didn't leave dramatically. I didn't announce it like a decision that needed witnesses. I just stopped showing up in ways that required me to be strong all the time. I stopped being the one who carried the weight so the connection could stay balanced. He felt it. "You don't lean on me anymore," he said one day, almost confused. I looked at him and realized how strange it was that he noticed my absence only when I stopped being useful. "I'm learning not to," I replied. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty saying it. The goodbye came quietly. No accusations. No blame. Just honesty spoken without urgency. "I think you value me," I said. "But I don't think you want me." He didn't argue. "I don't know how to," he admitted. That truth hurt, but it didn't break me. Because I finally understood it wasn't something I could fix by being more patient, more understanding, more strong. We hugged. Not tightly. Not desperately. The kind of hug you give someone who mattered, but couldn't stay. After him, I learned to notice the difference. Between being needed and being chosen. Between being reliable and being desired. Between calm and connection. I stopped confusing emotional usefulness with love. Strength is beautiful, but it shouldn't make you invisible. Independence is healthy, but it shouldn't disqualify you from being wanted. He wasn't wrong for loving the way he knew how. And I wasn't wrong for needing more. This wasn't a story about rejection. It was a story about clarity. About choosing not to stay where love only exists when you're strong enough to carry it alone. And this time, I chose differently.